Hello, everyone. Welcome to the DuPSUG, the Dutch PowerShell User Group. I'm happy to have you all here and happy we were able to still make it work, even though we were planning on doing this on location. So sorry for everyone who already had some plans and now had to quickly still find some food somewhere. I think some of us also had to.
They're going to be home.
Yeah. I want to quickly thank Synergy for sponsoring our user group. They sponsor most of the PowerShell user groups, so big heads up to them. And tonight we have the program. We have the first session by Harm about PowerShell. You can code anywhere you want. Then we have a small break, so people can go to the toilet, get something to drink, and so on. And then we'll continue with the next session from Jeff about PowerShell's hidden treasure chest, the .NET data types you didn't know you needed. And just as a small reminder, we have more events published on Meetup and more online events will follow too. I hope none of the physical events will eventually also become online. Let's hope that this was a one-off. We also still have a call for speakers open. We're looking for speakers who could do a session in person or online. We are considering organizing 1 or 2 more online events too. So if you're not able to give it in the Netherlands, but still would love to share something, feel free to submit something. And if you have a story you want to share with us, please do. If you're not sure, if you're the right person to do this, feel free to still submit. Let us know that you need some help and we can always help you. We love to give the podium to as many people as possible. So don't let this be a hurdle for you. Also, a small reminder, the call for speakers for PSConf EU is open for 11 more days, according to Sessionize. I thought it was closing the 10th of December, but apparently it's closing the 14th, according to Sessionize. My advice would still be, if you haven't submitted yet, submit as quickly as possible. Or in the words of Rob, they have the power to close it at any time if they feel so. And last reminder for the people who don't know it, the PowerShell community calls are the third Thursday of the month. So keep an eye out for them if you want to get in touch with some of the PowerShell team. And with that, I think it's time for our first session. So I'm going to mute everybody just to be sure. And Harm,
Leo, one thing. I unmuted myself because I'm a rebel.
There was one more announcement. Indeed. I forgot to add it to the slides.
One more thing.
Yes, one thing.
So at the moment, Jaap, Jeff, and me are the organization of the DuPSUG, and Harm has offered us to help. So this will be his initiation to also become a organizer for the Dutch PowerShell User Group. We were like, you can be an organizer, but you do have to talk at least at our event then. So after his talk is done, he will be joining us officially as a organizer.
Woohoo! Okay. So this is a test.
It's not so much as a test, it's more of an initiation rite.
Okay. It's like a student thing. Okay, good. No worries.
I think you have initiation rights for more than just students. But with that said, let's give the floor to Harm. I will stop sharing and you can start share your things.
Yep.
If people have questions, they can ask them in the chat. And after the session is done, there's room for Q&A too.
Yeah, and if you have a question that you really want to ask before we continue to the next part, you can ask it. If it takes too long, I'll just save it until the end. So I would like to do like a more interactive session. So questions are okay, but I still have a time limit. So yeah. Okay. That being said, thanks for joining my session, the Happy Holidays session. The session title was PowerShell. You can code anywhere you want, and that's almost true. But is it very efficient in all ways? No. But still, there are options, and there are more options than you might have guessed or might need. But first, I'll just show a little picture of myself. So a picture says more than a lot of words. This is me in a nutshell. It's based on the time that these AI things were a thing, creating little puppets of yourself. But it basically has everything that I am, including my color of my clothing, usually, my Pixel phone and Xbox controller because I'm a gamer, a Stream Deck because that's something that I use quite often, sitting beneath my monitor. I'm a big Lenovo fan, so Lenovo laptop, of course. I drink a lot of coffee, and you can see the MVP branding everywhere. So, yep, that's basically me. And these are my other details. The second one, I am getting old, so I'm almost 48 in a month actually. So I'm reaching the big 5. No worries. I don't feel like being old. I have 2 children. I work at InSpark as a consultant. I blog a lot. I'm MVP in PowerShell. I'm not a Microsoft certified trainer, although I do give training a lot, but not in the official MCT kind of way. I had 3 other sessions before this one, so this is actually my 4th. So I'm not a very skilled presenter yet, but I'm getting there. Music taste is anything with high BPMs, gaming, like I said, and soccer for the best club in the Netherlands, which is currently at the 6th position. So, but we'll get there. You'll probably know which soccer club it is now. You can find me on a lot of socials. These are just a few of them. These are a place where I usually hang out. It's mostly LinkedIn and Facebook for community stuff. And I try to avoid Twitter or X like it's called right now, because it's a mess out there. This is the calendar or the agenda for this meeting. First point will be a wider session, and I'll just demo everything that I use to code in during this session. It will not be like a slide deck of 60 or 80 pages, just a few slides. And at the end, I will actually score those to the most useful and the worst one that you can actually choose from all the things that I demo. And if there are any questions at the end, you can ask them then. And if you have any other solution that I might have missed as a coding platform, please share them with me, because new ideas are always welcome. Well, I did the session primarily to show all the options that are available. Usually I just run things on Windows. So Windows is my main platform, but these things will also work on Mac or Linux. I don't have a Mac myself, but I'm pretty sure that they'll also work on a Mac. And my other point is, well, you might need it. And when I started at my new employer, I got a laptop, and the laptop was pretty tightened for security reasons, making it very difficult to actually code on my machine. Controlled folder access in your documents and settings is pretty harsh for your PowerShell profiles. Quite a few of your modules, making things a lot more difficult to do on your local workstation. And that's why I needed other things to code in. I started off with just building up a VM on my machine and coding in there, but it's not that efficient. So that's why I discovered more options and using a lot of VS Code in all kinds of ways. And it's also fun. It's also fun learning new things, or things that you didn't imagine yet or even thought about. So those are the reasons why I wanted to do this session, and to just share my journey in discovering the plus and the minus points of all of them. Okay, then I'll stop with the presentation because I didn't have any more slides than this other than the scoreboard at the end. And I'll just share my screen. I'll just put you to the side because I have a larger monitor. So, okay, well, the first option that most people choose is the most obvious one because it's basically installed on your machine by default. I think we all coded in this a few times. So just put that to the side. It's a pretty basic editor. You can run and debug your stuff in this. It has support for some extensions. You can actually use things like IC steroids. If you ever used that in the past, it was my first kind of extension that actually formatted my code like I was actually know what I was doing and had like nice little indents in it, and the syntax highlighting was a lot better. But PowerShell IC has the limitation that it only works for PowerShell 5. So this is not multi-platform. You can actually run PowerShell 7 code in it if you would want that. There is an extension for that, but it's very flaky and not very solid. But it's a good editor. You can use it. You can use tabs in it. You can connect to remote systems in it. And usually there's like a module pane here on this side. It doesn't load at this moment. So it might be because I never started this on my new laptop. It's not the fastest, but it has all the debug purposes. And you have an add-ons website. See, there it is. So this is the basic IC editor. It's on your system. I think it's being removed by default. It's not in Windows Sandbox anymore, for instance. And just like all the other things like PowerShell 2, it's being removed from Windows. And I don't think that PowerShell 5.1 will be removed from Windows anytime soon, but it just might. And then you'll have nothing to do with IC anymore because it just won't work. The second option, and I heard people actually calling that a viable option to code things. I hope this is kind of visible for you. It's Notepad++. You can actually do some, well, it's more like syntax highlighting. You can set it to PowerShell as a view, and it kind of does an autocomplete of some of the commandlets. But if you actually choose one and try to use Control Space to fill out your parameters, it won't work. It's just for coding. There was like a plugin that you could actually run code or debug code in it, but I couldn't find it anymore. And it seems to have stopped somewhere in 2018, 2019, that it was actually possible to code or debug in it. Let me see if I can actually open a script so that you can see that it does some of the highlighting, but it's just like basic highlighting. It knows a few commandlets, it knows a few aliases, but it's hardly an editor. It's more like highlighting for easy code editing. If you actually know, I just have to change this value of this parameter and I can save it, then it's okay. But don't expect anything more from it, like in coding or debugging. I think this is probably the most used one, VS Code. I actually started in Visual Studio for PowerShell editing like 8 or 9 years ago when that was a thing. But it's not as pretty and as fast as running things in Visual Studio Code. It actually has good highlighting, good IntelliSense. Sometimes your IntelliSense sense stops during processing, but it's okay. You have your debug points. You can edit things You have like a lot of extensions that you can add in Visual Studio Code for PowerShell, but also for other languages. It's like a really versatile multi-platform editor, making it possible to I think you can edit like anything in this, but I'm just a PowerShell coder. I'm not a programmer, so don't expect to see anything in .NET or C# from me in this editor. This is actually the starting point for all the other solutions that I have to code in, and that most of them are based on the Remote Explorer. The Remote Explorer is a plugin in Visual Studio Code that you can use to connect to development containers, GitHub code spaces, over SSH tunnels, or to your Windows subsystem for Linux environments on your system if you have those. I'm not even sure if it's installed by default, but it's just a plugin. It's from Microsoft itself, so it's a trustworthy one to install. And using Remote Explorer, you can connect to things like VSL. How many of you actually use Windows Subsystem for Linux to code in? Yeah. And do you only use like Ubuntu or also Debian or any other distro?
Usually just Ubuntu.
Ubuntu.
Yeah, because it's the default one that you get. It does what it should do, and PowerShell is supported in that, also in Debian. Usually not in all the versions, but there are other ones. I did try quite a few of them, but most of them I couldn't even get PowerShell to run in or to install because it was either too old, too new, or I couldn't find any way of installing it. I have an Ubuntu 20.04 here. I think that's probably one of the older ones. Newer ones, it's usually in the long-term service channel ones that you can use. But if you have like a Windows Subsystem for Linux machine here, you can actually connect to it using this, or and I'm not sure if that's usually my starting point. This is 20, this is 22. So I haven't started the first installation of this one yet. So now you can actually see how that looks. But most of the VMs come with built-in Visual Studio Code support. So you don't have to do anything. You can just run code in it and it will automatically attach to your Visual Studio Code. So if you just press or type code dash, then it should download the Visual Studio Code server agent on your machine. I actually have internet on this VM. Let me check that first. It doesn't seem to actually want to download it. That's good because I already have one that has installed. As you can see in the lower right, I hope it's visible for you, otherwise I have to zoom in a bit more. You can see that it's unpacking it. I don't think I have this workspace anymore. I'll just open the root folder. This VM should already have PowerShell installed. have the extension installed. As you can see, when you browse your extensions, you can actually choose to install it in a specific VM. In this case, I'll just install it in the one that I'm currently connected to. Yeah. I don't think it knows where my PowerShell location is. I think this is the correct location where PowerShell is located. Okay, it doesn't seem to have PowerShell installed. I think I'm having issues with my internet access on this one because it says it's connecting to the Ubuntu archives, but okay, so I'm no, it's not false. I don't have any internet access on these VMs as well. I'm not sure what's going on with my Windows subsystem for Linux network. Looks like it's blocked. Okay, but if you connect to this and you edit a script, it will just look the same like you were editing scripts on your local machine, including all the IntelliSense and debugging capabilities. And the good thing about developing scripts in a subsystem for Linux VM is that your modules and all your settings will actually be saved. There are other container options that you can develop scripts in, but those modules and those settings will not be saved. For instance, like Azure Cloud Shell, not all of those modules will be actually saved in your session. So each time you start a new session, it will look like a Groundhog Day, and you will run into the same empty container. I think this is comparable to opening up an SSH session. You can connect using SSH to any Linux or Debian or system, and it will also install the SSH agent in that. And now I'm connected to my Ubuntu server somewhere in a closet here. And now you can actually see that IntelliSense works, so it can actually find the processes on that system. Modules that I installed. I usually use this for basically anything Graph or Azure, but you can edit, run and connect everything from a remote Linux system using Visual Studio Code. The only downside of developing and things like that is if you need like a modern authentication prompt in a browser, it will not pop up. You won't see that. You can only use like the device login to actually connect to things like Microsoft Graph. See, it will automatically tell you to go to a device login page and use a specific code to connect. I have to get my phone for this. And now I'm actually connected to Microsoft Graph. This will work with things like Exchange and Azure as well, but you might run into issues for things that actually only work with a modern auth prompts. But for this, it's the easiest way to develop things when I'm not in my office location or on a laptop on which I don't have any modules. I can just connect to my system using VPN across the internet and develop things on there. And usually my home office is IP whitelisted for certain things. So if I'm at the office and I need to connect to a specific customer which is whitelisted my home location, then I can actually use my remote system to connect to that and then connect to Microsoft Graph or Azure or whatever access I might need. Loading plugins is the same thing. You can also do that in a remote machine, just like you would do it locally. So the Windows subsystem for Linux and SSH is kind of similar. They both connect to a Linux system using an agent, and you can code in it just like you were coding on your local desktop. Another option would be if, I don't know if some of you heard or ever used Windows Sandbox. Is that something that you use? It's the disposable VM component on your Windows system. You can actually start it. It's like a VM that starts. You can do anything you want in it, and if you close it, it immediately flushes all the data. And it's a safe way of testing things in a Windows system. It's easier than installing yet another VM on your system. And I wrote a blog post about this like 2 years ago, in which you can spin up a Windows Sandbox machine, starting here, and it will automatically push and install the SSH agents on it. Your Visual Studio Code will then connect to that SSH port on this machine. That way you can code from a Mac or a Linux system inside a Windows system, which is like a full-blown Windows system. You can break anything you want, and you can just throw the VM away again. I use this for software development tests. And that way I'm sure that I always have like a clean Windows VM in which I code. The machine goes away when it's done. So now it connects to the SSH port running inside of Windows Sandbox. You could choose that it's a Windows system. You could see in the details. I hope this is visible. I'll just zoom in a bit again. It should give you an overview of the things that it's doing, trying to install the remote agents on it. Yeah. Sometimes it does time out. Let me just check if the SSH port is actually running or available. Okay, I think it just wasn't ready installing the Open SSH client, because it's not there yet. I don't think this has any internet access as well. It's starting to become a thing in this demo session, and perhaps I should have prayed to the demo gods to help me out a little bit during this session, but it probably doesn't have, well, it does have a DNS server, so that's good. Because it downloads an open SSH client from internet and probably could not download it. And that's this MSI. I'll just install it manually then. Is the download even there yet? No. I'm really starting to wonder if I actually have. No. I think I'll just switch to my wireless internet. So, back again. And hopefully I'll have some internet now, because this is getting hard to demo if you don't have any working DNS. Nope. Okay. I'm not sure what's going on in my network, but this is making it is making it hard. And yeah, I'll just try it. I can actually. Oh, but I am here in a Teams meeting on the same machine, so I should have internet. But what it basically does is just like the same, like I just shown for the Linux system. It basically connects a remote system using SSH to your Visual Studio Code. It kind of works the same. It would have been nice if I can actually demo that. This is also something that is then visible in your Remote Explorer if it actually connected, because these are previous sessions. You can see by the IP addresses, this is the range that the Windows Sandbox uses for its temporary IP addresses. Kind of works the same, but it would be nice to demo it. Another solution would be to use GitHub code spaces. Are you familiar with GitHub code spaces? Does anyone actually use it? And do you actually use it further than the standard amount of hours that you get?
Yeah, quite a lot.
Okay, because it's not free, it's not super expensive, but it all depends on the amount of CPU power that you put into it. Because you can actually use it for 120 hours each month for free. And if you have GitHub Pro, you can use it for 180 hours per month. But the more cores you put into it, they start adding a usage multiplier. So then if you use 2 cores, then your 120 hours becomes 60 hours. And if you use 4 cores, then it will turn into 30 hours. So, and if you like need a lot of compute, then you'll run through your limit in a few hours if you use like the 32 core system. Are there any other models, Jaap, than these ones? Or is this just the amount of compute options that they have?
I'm not sure. I never really used it for compute that much. For me, it was more of a compatibility thing. So no. I use my code spaces mostly. So I have all my tools installed.
Yeah,
that's my main use case.
Yeah. Okay, because the Visual Studio code spaces, I have one that's currently disconnected, or it has like an idle timeout of 30 minutes. So if you don't use it for 30 minutes, it will automatically disconnect so that your meter will stop running. And I'll just disconnect it in here. I must say that the 2-core version isn't that performant. It gets the job done, but it's not that fast. I think if you really want to do something that is pretty intense, then the 2-core option would be something. I would rather switch to 4 or 8 cores, but that means that I'll run out of code spaces in a few hours. Okay, so I connect to Visual Studio of GitHub code spaces in Visual Studio. I connected it to one of my repositories. You can connect to other repositories if you want. Let me see if I have anything here. Actually have it gave me an error that it couldn't find PowerShell, but the LTS version is actually here. So again, this also works similar like the other remote options, but this is like a VM, the GitHub hosts for you, in which you can install the things that you need for your PowerShell coding. You can let it run longer tasks, and you just have to link your credit card to it, I guess, if you want to use it for longer than the amount of hours that you get for free. It's a viable option. It's there, but it's not free if you want to use it for your everyday production work. This is actually like a front of GitHub. You can also use the Visual Studio Dev Editor. And that's something that you have in your GitHub repository by pressing the point on your keyboard. Then it will automatically set up a text editor inside your GitHub repository. It does do color coding like this, but it has no IntelliSense. There is an extension for PowerShell in the marketplace, but if you look it up, then it will say that the PowerShell extension is not available in Visual Studio Code on the web. So this makes editing nice if you want to change something in one of your GitHub repositories right away. Then you can use it because it does have source control, but it will automatically push it to the master branch. You can't use it for a branch. It will just push it straight to master or primary or whatever. But yeah, but it makes it like a good editor if you want to change something in your scripts and you actually know what you need to change, or you made a typo and you don't want to spin up your whole work laptop again. Then you can use this to just change something simple, save it, and source control will tell you what has been changed, and you can commit it straight to your repository. It's just a nice way of editing things in a browser, but it's comparable to Notepad++, I guess, because it has no debug options, no extensions. It's just a nice color highlighting, but it doesn't do any IntelliSense on that. Another option in the browser would be to use, and this is actually one of the exam questions in, I think, in Azure Administrator exam, where the question in that was, where can you code or connect to your Azure environment on what devices? And one of the devices was an iPad, if I'm not mistaken. And then I thought, well, how can you actually connect to Azure doing PowerShell on iPad? Well, they do that by using the Cloud Shell option, because it's browser based. You can actually do stuff in Azure or in Microsoft Graph or anywhere using a browser. And there's actually an editor inside Cloud Shell, which is only available in the classic Cloud Shell. Like this, yeah. So if you use code and a file name, you can actually do things here. It does have IntelliSense, or tries to mimic parts of things that you already typed, but it's a really basic editor. This is also for changing an existing script in an Azure Cloud Shell session. You can leave this one by pressing Control Q. It's almost the same as pressing semicolon and WQ if you're familiar with the VI editor, the editor that everyone enters but never never leaves. It's not a very good experience coding files in this. There's also the editor like here, which has like the file overview so that you can select other files. But it's text-based, it doesn't do anything, it's easy for editing. I'm not sure if I installed the module here in this environment. No. There's also the PowerShell Editor module. That's from Ironman Software, if I'm not mistaken. It's kind of a, it looks like a MS-DOS based editor. And I'll just zoom in a bit. If that's, I'm not sure if I can. No, I can zoom in a bit. It's a text-based editor, which actually has IntelliSense in it. And if you want to select something, it's not Control Space, it's Control Enter. Yeah, let's do some kind of IntelliSense, and you can actually run specific parts with F8, just like in VS Code. Actually has some kind of debug option in it. You can run parts of your script in it, you can run the whole script in it, or you can exit and run the script that you had open in the console. Okay, and then the information is gone, but this is an easy to use editor which works on Linux, on Azure Cloud Shell, on Mac. Works everywhere, and the good thing about it is that you can actually run parts of your script, of that you can use the tab signs in it. But it has like a really basic interview, but at least it has the Control Q option in the menu option, so that you can choose to exit it if you want. But you can also run the same Azure Cloud Shell like you have in your browser locally on your system. Has anyone tried to clone the Docker container for Azure Cloud Shell on the local system? Because that is an option. Just switch back to my local system. because I wrote a blog post about that a time ago, but you can actually clone. Now I'm in the same Cloud Shell interface like the one that you just saw in the web browser. It has a PowerShell in it, and it even has, I think this was from 7.5. So this container image was from 8 months ago, so it's pretty new. But what you can also do, because I have started this Docker container, you can actually attach Visual Studio Code to it. Then you would be running a local version of Azure Cloud Shell in a container in Visual Studio Code, and you can use that to edit your scripts in. It has like all the modules from Microsoft that you need. Just start one. It has all the functions, and I'm not sure. Yep. All the modules for Graph and from Azure are present in this container. But if you close this container and start it again, because it doesn't have any persistent mapped folders, you will lose all your custom modules or profile settings that you had in your Docker container version of Azure Cloud Shell if you exit it. And I think I just covered all the different options that I had. So I'll stop sharing my normal screen and I'll share my presentation again, because you saw so many options and now you think, well, what's the best option? What's the worst option? So I did a little ranking of those. I'm in presenter mode now. Okay, do you actually see this? I'm just moving this back to my other screen.
Yep, I can see the scoreboard right now.
Okay, so I think I covered all these options. Unfortunately, the Windows Sandbox one didn't work. and the Windows Subsystem for Linux instances seem to have some kind of DNS issue locally, because something with the network interface for Windows Subsystem for Linux, not sure. The SSH option worked to my Linux machine. This was the one in the browser, the VS Code dev one. Azure Cloud Shell, the both options, and the PowerShell edit one. I tried to do a ranking with plus and minus points. So just count all the pluses and lower them with the minus points. And even though PowerShell IC only does PowerShell 5, it's still pretty easy to maintain, use editor. It has no or limited extensions. Can be pretty fast. You can do run and debug options in it, so it's pretty good. Notepad++ can only actually edit a file, but there's no run debug extensions. It's not very fast because, well, you get some of the commandlets in there, but you can't use any parameters or autocomplete those. Notepad is pretty easy to install, but still gets only a minus. Well, VS Code does anything you want on every platform in multiple scenarios, so it's just plus for them. Yeah, sorry, I saw the comment. Do you actually use all the extensions in it? I only used, like I said, IC Steroids. That was the only plugin that actually made sense. Are there any other?
Yeah, it's very easy to extend yourself, so you can just use PowerShell code to add new functionality in there. So
okay.
And that's what I try to highlight.
But it's more do-it-yourself. Okay. Well, Windows Sandbox, when it actually works, it's great. It's not very fast because you have to wait until the VM starts up, until Visual Studio Code extension gets installed. But it's a nice and clean way to securely test your scripts. You can even break a whole system, but it doesn't matter because it's a disposable VM on your system. Visual Studio Code to a dev container. It's pretty easy, but using dev containers means you have to install Docker. If you have to use Docker images, not all of them have persistent volume mounts in them. It can be somewhat longish to set up. The Azure Cloud Shell one, if you compile it yourself, it took me like 45 minutes to build. You can get the Docker image, but you can also build it from GitHub yourself, but it's not the easiest one to build. To a Windows subsystem for Linux instance, if it actually works, if you don't have any network issues. That's pretty easy. You just have to have some knowledge of Linux. You have to be able to install PowerShell modules and any other things in your Linux VM. But other than that, still a good option. Same goes for code spaces. Didn't find it that fast. Like I mentioned, the 2-core system. I think I have to use like 4 cores to get some extra performance in it, but it's a very easy way to edit straight in your GitHub repository using code spaces. Visual Studio Code over SSH to an existing Linux system, which is hardware based. I did score this like a plus instead of a WSL instance because I found normal Linux systems like servers, like physical things, easier. You don't have to have like a hosting system or VMware platform for it. The Visual Studio Code dev website, yeah, it's great. You can do things in it. Not for PowerShell, other extensions are available, but you can't run or debug in it. And not all extensions work, at least for PowerShell, they're not available. And Azure Cloud Shell in a browser, well, only if I have to. I run Azure Cloud Shell locally from a Windows terminal or in a container, but you can easily install all your extensions yourself. It's just an easy way to authenticate because you're already authenticated to Azure to hop into other sessions in your same tenant. It's just an easy way of accessing it, but working in that all day wouldn't make sense for me. Running it locally, it's kind of like the WSL instances or SSH, but it's not easy to set up and maintain because you download a version from 8 months ago. It doesn't get that updated that fast, and all the updates that you do yourself, they're gone when you restart your container. So it's a clean environment, but for me, it doesn't make that much sense. And on PS Edit, it's actually pretty good. It's a very basic interface, but it does have run debug options. It's pretty fast. And you're kind of bound to how fast Ironman software updates PS Edit. They have updated it a few times the last few years, but I don't see that many updates of it. And then I tried to color code for some easy visuals what the best options were. I thought I'll just use green, orange, and red, but Notepad++ gets black. Has no color. The other options with one plus were the web browser options and PS Edit. And these are the better options to use depending on your use case and your scenarios. And I think that the normal VS Code and running it in a container or over SSH is probably the best option for you. Maintaining and retaining all your settings in it is generally just a bit faster. So that was my demo presentation. And if you have any questions other than why does my network work, then please go ahead. Leo?
Yes, I think it was something different, or it's something different than the SSH version you showed. Do you know about VS Code Server?
VS Code Server? It doesn't like a server extension of all the things you connect, but
no, it's I say you can take a specific VM or whatever, set it up completely the way you want, and then from any VS Code instance, you can remote into this server via VS Code.
Oh, so it does its own port forwarding, right?
Yeah, kind of. It's a little bit like a GitHub code space, but then a self-hosted GitHub code space.
Okay, so you have more performance, and it doesn't cost you anything other than the hardware you already had.
Yeah, you can run it on a VM or whatever. It is a bit finicky to set up, but it is interesting for some situations. Jeff already posted a link in the chat. I've also posted a link in the chat for Notepad++, where you can have IntelliSense and running PowerShell scripts in Notepad++.
Yeah, because I was looking for those extensions, but it's all 404s and a dead end, and people asking for it, but didn't have it.
Yeah, I don't know if they still work, but I remember 7-8 years ago so using it, because then I was a big fan of Notepad++.
I also saw NeoFim in the comments. That's something that Christian Piet, one of my colleagues, really likes. I don't know. Do you actually use it for production use every day, or? I don't know. From the question was from Matrix View, but. He's typing, okay. Okay. More as an alternative. Okay. Yep. Alexander?
Yeah. So maybe I missed it, but you show how to use Azure Cloud Shell when you run it as a local container, and then you attach VS Code to it.
Yeah.
But have you shown how to use Azure Cloud Shell as just a terminal in a VS Code based on a Azure Resources extension? Because that's the best way.
Okay. Then
you don't need to maintain it. You just attach VS Code to it instead of working in a browser.
The same way like you do when you connect to it using Windows Terminal, right?
Yeah. Similar. But Windows Terminal has a support for attaching to it built in. And for VS Code, you need Azure Resources is called now. It used to be called Azure Account, but that extension is now deprecated. And it will bring you options that when you pick a terminal, you will have two options to attach to a bash or to PowerShell.
It's something that you won't get from this extension, from the Azure extension.
Right. So go to a terminals. You see what you have a PWSH plus. So use a drop-down menu, not there, like in a here when you open different terminals. Right. See Azure Cloud Shell, Bash, and PowerShell. That's the best way to go, because you will attach yourself to the version that runs in Azure Linux container.
Okay. Is this the correct page? Because I'm going to.
You need for that to work, you need Node.js.
Okay. So you need Node.js on your system, and Node.js will be like a proxy then.
I don't care about it. It's just like a requirement for installing it. I don't care how it works. It just works.
Okay.
I mean, the best part of it is that you can have a local script, and then you can select code in it and run it as a selection, and it will run in Azure Cloud Shell terminal. So the selected piece of code will be sent over internet and run there, which is just magical, really. That's just amazing. You get the editing capabilities of VS Code, but you execute everything in Cloud Shell.
Yeah, because I did know this one, the one in Windows Terminal, but it just connects
It's a similar thing, but I think experience is just better in VS Code because you can use the editor and then run code in the Cloud Shell. So you have
it's more of the editing part. The running of the code where you do doesn't matter. But yeah.
Right. I mean, if you want to run it just terminal, you run things there. If you want to run it in write it in an editor and then run it from there, it's also able. So very elegant way.
Yeah. Good addition, Alexander. No, did not know that. I was expecting the resource thing here, that it would appear like an option here from the Azure Resource extension.
I mean, if you had a Node.js installed, then it will work for you. Just you need the extension and the Node.js. Right.
All right. I will put that on my to-do list, which is forever growing. Okay.
Harm?
Yeah.
There's also, I believe it was a Medium post from Saraswati Lakshman. Sorry if I mispronounced it. Basically, if you run it in a Docker container, and for example on a Raspberry Pi, you can the entire Docker container with Node.js will be 135 megabytes.
Oh, that's pretty light.
Yeah. So doing it that way, you can use the very cheap Raspberry Pi and host it, stuff like that, VS Code server, all of that stuff.
Yeah. I did run it on a Pi before, but now I have like a Minis forum, somewhat more powerful one, and my Raspberry Pi became my home assistant thing. But yeah, that's how it goes. But okay, that's an option too. That's pretty lightweight then. Usually those containers are pretty bulky.
I'll share the post in the chat.
Yeah, appreciate it.